Before Wall Street, before skyscrapers, before millions of people filled these streets, this place was mud, chaos, and survival. The year is 1690, and the city we now call New York barely resembles the global capital it will one day become. No towering skyline, no financial district, no endless avenues. Instead, you see narrow dirt roads, wooden houses leaning toward the harbor, ships arriving from distant continents, merchants arguing over cargo, soldiers patrolling crude wooden walls. This is a frontier port at the edge of an expanding world, a place where trade, ambition, and danger collide every day. And although no one here realizes it yet, the foundations of one of the most powerful cities in history are already forming. In 1690, New York is still a very small colonial town compared to the massive metropolis it will become centuries later. Only a few thousand people live here, most of them clustered at the southern tip of Manhattan Island. Beyond the small settlement, the rest of the island is mostly wilderness, forests, rocky hills, scattered farms, and rough paths leading north into unknown territory. The streets inside the town are narrow and unpaved. After heavy rain, they quickly turn into deep mud, making travel slow and difficult. Horses pull wooden carts loaded with barrels of food, building materials, and trade goods arriving from the harbor. Most homes are simple wooden structures with steep roofs and small windows. Some wealthier merchants live in larger brick houses, but those are rare. Shops and workshops sit directly beside homes. Blacksmiths hammer iron tools. Bakers prepare bread in hot brick ovens. Small taverns serve sailors and traders who arrive from distant ports. The harbor is the heart of the settlement. Ships from Europe and the Caribbean anchor along the waterfront, bringing textiles, sugar, tools, and rum. And although the town appears small and rough, it is already becoming something important, a trading gateway connecting continents. The settlement that would eventually become New York did not begin as an English city. In the early 1600s, it was founded by Dutch traders and explorers working for the powerful Dutch West India Company. Their goal was simple: control trade in North America and profit from the lucrative fur market. They established a small colonial outpost at the southern tip of Manhattan and called it New Amsterdam. From this harbor, ships carried beaver pelts and other goods back to Europe. The settlement quickly became a busy trading port. Merchants, sailors, farmers, and craftsmen from different parts of Europe arrived looking for opportunity. Dutch influence shaped the city's early character, its buildings, its street patterns, and even its system of trade. But European empires were constantly competing for control of valuable territory. In 1664, English warships sailed into the harbor and demanded that the colony surrender. The Dutch governor realized the settlement had little chance of resisting a naval attack. Rather than risk destruction, the city was handed over without a major battle. From that moment, New Amsterdam became New York, named after the Duke of York. English rule brought new laws, new governors, and closer ties to the growing English colonial system. Yet, even under English control, the city never lost its Dutch roots. Many families, customs, and traditions from the earlier colony continued shaping life in the streets for decades to come. Daily life in New York around 1690 revolves almost entirely around the harbor. From early morning, the waterfront is alive with activity. Ships arrive from across the Atlantic, carrying cargo from Europe, the Caribbean, and other American colonies. Sailors shout orders as ropes are pulled tight and sails lowered. Dock workers move quickly along the wooden piers, unloading barrels, crates, and heavy bundles of trade goods. Merchants stand nearby inspecting shipments. Inside the cargo are items that connect this small colonial town to the wider world. Sugar from the Caribbean, rum, fabrics, iron tools, spices, and manufactured goods from European workshops. In return, ships leaving New York carry resources from the New World. Fur pelts collected through trade networks in the interior. Timber cut from nearby forests. Grain and agricultural products from surrounding farms. The docks are noisy and chaotic. Carts rattle over rough ground carrying goods into warehouses near the waterfront. Sailors fill nearby taverns after long voyages. Traders argue over prices and contracts. Many languages can be heard in the streets: English, Dutch, French, and others brought by immigrants, sailors, and enslaved people who live and work in the growing colony. This constant movement of goods and people slowly transforms the settlement. What began as a small colonial outpost is gradually becoming something much larger, a port city connected to global trade networks. Life in New York during the late 1600s is shaped not only by trade and opportunity, but also by constant tension and uncertainty. The colony sits in a fragile position between powerful empires. England controls the city, but nearby territories belong to France, and both nations are competing for influence across North America. Their rivalries in Europe often spill into the colonies, turning distant settlements into potential battlegrounds. News of conflicts travels slowly across the Atlantic, but when it arrives, it spreads quickly through the narrow streets of the town. Merchants discuss rumors in taverns. Soldiers reinforce defensive positions. Governors worry that enemy fleets could appear along the coast without warning. Beyond the city, alliances with Native American nations play a crucial role in survival and trade. Some groups cooperate with the English, while others maintain relationships with the French. These alliances shift over time, and each change can reshape the balance of power in the region. Because of these risks, the town maintains defenses along its northern edge. A wooden wall once stood there to protect the settlement from possible attacks, guarded by small groups of soldiers and simple cannons. At night, watchmen patrol the streets carrying lanterns and warning bells. The city may look like a small trading port, but beneath the daily routines lies a constant awareness that danger could arrive at any moment, from rival empires, from the sea, or from conflicts spreading across the frontier. Despite the uncertainty and tensions of colonial life, trade in New York continues to grow steadily. The harbor becomes the heart of the settlement's economy. Every week, ships arrive carrying goods from across the Atlantic world. Textiles from England, sugar from the Caribbean, tools, metal goods, and barrels of rum. In return, merchants in New York send valuable resources outward. Furs collected through trade networks deep in North America, timber cut from nearby forests, grain and agricultural products from surrounding farms. Along the waterfront, wooden docks are constantly busy. Dock workers unload cargo, while merchants inspect shipments and negotiate prices in crowded warehouses. Small counting houses appear near the harbor, where traders keep records of shipments and debts. Slowly, a class of powerful merchants begins to emerge. These traders understand something important about the city's future. New York sits in a nearly perfect location for commerce. Its deep natural harbor protects ships from storms. Rivers and inland routes connect the port to vast territories beyond the coast. Goods can move in every direction, and although the streets may still look rough and muddy, the foundations of a powerful trading economy are quietly being built. Along the southern edge of the small settlement runs a simple road beside a wooden defensive wall. At this moment in 1690, it is nothing remarkable, just a narrow dirt path running near the outer edge of town. Merchants pass through it, carrying goods from the harbor. Farmers bring carts filled with vegetables, grain, and livestock from nearby fields. Sailors walk this road on their way to taverns near the docks. The ground is uneven and muddy after rain. Wooden fences line parts of the road. Nearby buildings are small warehouses, storage sheds, and modest homes. Yet this quiet street sits beside an important structure, a wooden wall built years earlier by the Dutch colonists. The wall was originally constructed to protect the settlement of New Amsterdam from possible attacks by rival European powers and conflicts with nearby groups. Over time, the defensive wall becomes less important. The town grows. The threat fades. Eventually, the wall will disappear, but the name connected to it will remain. The road beside the wall will later become known as Wall Street. Centuries later, this quiet, muddy road will transform into one of the most powerful financial centers on Earth. Banks will rise where wooden houses once stood. Trading floors will replace farm carts. Decisions made on this street will influence global markets, governments, and economies across the planet. But in 1690, none of that future is visible. All you see is a small colonial road beside a wooden wall, a place that looks ordinary, yet quietly standing at the beginning of something that will one day shape the world economy. By the end of the 17th century, New York is still small, but the direction of its future is already becoming clear. The harbor continues to attract ships from distant ports. Vessels arrive carrying manufactured goods from Europe, sugar and rum from the Caribbean, and supplies from other American colonies. In return, merchants ship out furs, timber, grain, and other raw materials gathered from the surrounding lands. Each new arrival strengthens the town's role as a trading gateway between continents. The population slowly increases as more settlers arrive looking for opportunity. Craftsmen open workshops, traders expand their businesses, and new houses appear along the growing streets of the settlement. Markets become busier. Warehouses multiply along the waterfront. Small docks are extended to handle the increasing flow of cargo. What still looks like a rough colonial town is quietly developing the structure of a future commercial center. The location of the city gives it a powerful advantage. Deep water in the harbor allows large ships to dock safely. Nearby rivers connect the port to vast inland territories rich with natural resources. Merchants and officials may not fully realize it yet, but the conditions for explosive growth are already forming. Trade is increasing, population is rising, and the port at the edge of Manhattan Island is slowly preparing for a much larger role in the world. If you stand on the southern edge of Manhattan in the year 1690, it is almost impossible to imagine what this place will one day become. The harbor is active, but not overwhelming. A few dozen ships sit anchored in the water, their wooden masts swaying gently in the wind. Sailors move cargo onto small docks, while merchants argue over barrels of goods arriving from distant colonies. The town itself is small, Most buildings are only 2 or 3 stories tall, built from timber and rough brick. Narrow dirt roads twist through the settlement, turning into thick mud after every rainfall. At night, the streets grow quiet, except for the sounds of taverns near the waterfront. Beyond the edge of town, forests and farmland quickly take over the landscape. Nothing about this place looks like the center of a future global empire. And yet, hidden inside this small colonial port are the conditions that will shape the city's destiny. Its geography is almost perfect. The natural harbor is deep and protected, allowing ships from across the Atlantic to dock safely. Rivers and inland waterways connect the harbor to the interior of North America, creating powerful trade routes that stretch far beyond the small settlement. Merchants begin to notice these advantages. Trade slowly increases. More ships arrive every year. More settlers follow the opportunities created by commerce. As decades pass, the small colonial town begins expanding outward from the harbor. Warehouses grow larger, markets become busier, new neighborhoods appear along the island. The muddy streets of 1690 will eventually become paved avenues. The wooden houses will give way to stone buildings, and the quiet road beside the old defensive wall will evolve into the financial heart of the modern world. None of the people walking these streets in 1690 know it yet. But the foundation of a future empire has already been laid. What you've just seen is a reconstruction of New York around the year 1690, long before it became a global financial capital. The streets, harbor, and colonial atmosphere in this video were recreated using AI reconstruction technology to visualize what the early city may have looked like during its earliest years.